Originally, I think in the 60s, there were 4 doctors, Dr. Rushin and Dr. Taylor.
Bill Taylor.
In Barton. And then Dr. Livingston and Dr. Platt, and then a Dr. Smith. And I think probably in the 50s or 60s, they shared the practice between Alrewas and Barton.
At the surgery was Dr. Platt and Dr. Livingstone, and at the time they had a secretary called Mrs. Singer, just for a short while, and then Mary Shermer took over when Mrs. Singer retired, and the receptionist was Mrs. Bates, and another lady called Jill Gibson.
And then I came and met Dr. Livingston, and I just thought it was such a lovely village, and I just liked the feel of the place. But at the time, Dr. Livingston had just split up with another doctor, and they were working in separate surgeries. So anyway, so I was a bit nervous about joining Dr. Livingston. There were 2 practices, but the family practitioner committee, who were in charge, then said, no, you join.
I started working at the surgery because my mum retired and I was qualified as a midwife, so I actually took my mum's job, and that was in 1968. So that really was the reason.
And so I joined him in 1977, and it was quite different. There were 2 doctors, 1 receptionist. The surgery opened at 8:30, and we had to be out by 10:30 because Dr. Livingston would always leave by 10:30. The doors were locked, and then the answer phone, the telephone, was switched through to one of our wives.
Yeah, as the surgery expanded, because of the village expanding, we had another doctor arrive, Dr. Horton, and he introduced different clinics and, like chiropody and things, different things were happening at the surgery then.
Yes, I came in 1984, having been a trainee in Coleshill, which is sort of near the NEC. So we left South Africa in about 1980, and we were looking for something not too hectic, really. And in those days, there was really tough competition to get into practices, and I guess 100 applicants was average at the time. And a friend of a friend nudged Rob in the ribs and said, "It's worth meeting this guy," to which I'm eternally grateful.
We'd realised that we needed a bit more help. I wasn't really happy with this no one in the surgery between 10:30 and 2. So that changed. So there was someone there most of the day. And I can't quite remember when we took on Aline.
A couple of years after Dr. Horton arrived, he asked me to be the practice nurse at the surgery. So I agreed because the home deliveries of babies, were dwindling because everybody was going into hospital.
So we needed more space. So we pushed out, looking at the surgery to the right in 1979, and added 2 new consultation rooms, one for Stuart, one for myself, and then an examination room in the middle.
That's the current waiting room, the new waiting room. Was that first extension?
Yeah. And that's so the practice developed quite a bit, but then it was Shake coming in 1984, and our ideas to train, further develop the practice. And then I think it was after UK, I can't remember whether it was after UK, and we heard a rumour that the telephone exchange next door to the surgery was up for sale and that the doctors were going to buy it.
Yes, that was as I arrived.
Yeah.
He said, "I must tell you, there's a rumour around that we're buying the telephone exchange." I said, "Oh, are we?" He said, "I don't know. Are we?" And we did.
So we put in a sealed bid. It was a sealed bid.
Yeah.
And we put in a bid for £2,000, and we weren't sure whether we'd get it. And just about the time you came, we got the telephone exchange.
Shaped like a loaf of bread, a single building. And we filled in the gap between the surgery and the telephone exchange.
The gap is behind is the bit behind the electricity substation.
Yeah.
Yes, as part of my job as practice nurse then was to do blood tests, smear tests, ECGs, hearing tests, asthma tests, minor surgery with the doctors, travel and baby vaccinations, and various bits of counselling as well.
And in those days, we were still doing our own on-call, and the trainee who was with us for a year was attached to the practice, and we bought a bungalow in the village for the trainee to live in because they needed someone to live to be on call. So they shared our on-call 1 in 3. And then I'm not quite sure why, but the bungalow next to the surgery came up for sale. And it was quite a bit bigger than the bungalow that we got for the trainee or for the registrar. But we decided it would be a good opportunity. So we sold the little bungalow we had in Walkfield, and we bought the bungalow next door to the surgery, not at that time with the intention of blending it into the surgery, but just as a place for the registrar, and with a view that sometime in the future we might be able to link it up. And then I think it was in 1995 that we linked it up.
As the village grew, many more patients registered, and we had 3 partners, Dr. Horton, Dr. Siegel and Dr. Mager Jones. And we had extensions built, making more accommodation to have more clinics and lots more things going on. And then computers arrived, which I absolutely hated. I can cope with them now, but not at the time. They were very alien.
Interestingly, the village, has been a slow development, but I'd say the surgery's developed quicker, in terms of pace. And what I'm referring to there is staff and nursing staff and services. And we started training in '87. I'd say, if there were trajectories, the village has grown, but the surgery's gone on a steeper trajectory.
Because it was so busy at the surgery, we needed, more help really. But I really didn't want to work full time because I'd got the kids. And so I knew about Paula, and I knew she'd fit in very well at Alrewas Surgery. And I asked Paula if she would join. And all the doctors very much agreed with it. I think it took Paula a little while to decide. It was a bit of a shock, but she's still there and obviously enjoys it.
In 1994, I was working at St Giles Hospice in Lichfield, just very part-time. And I think in about May, I was shopping with baby Jake in the village, in the co-op I think, and ran into Aline Jackson. We were just chatting, and she said they were looking for a new nurse, and would I be interested? Would I like to come along to the surgery for a chat? And in fact, that's exactly what I did. So she, Rob, Horton, and I chatted in the treatment room just over the way, very informal. And I started just a few weeks after that. That was 20 years ago.